Welcome to the weekly rundown, guys. We're just going to talk about the message this week, which was God on the mountaintop.
God on the mountaintop.
Daniel.
Kind of felt like Lord of the Ring-ish kind of feel.
Yeah, Pastor Daniel, Connie, just in case you don't know who we are, right?
Yeah, Connie, and I'm Daniel.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
Oh, sorry.
Fist bump.
Can't shake hands right now. Virtual fist bump. Elbows.
Anyway, we're glad you're here.
This is my first time doing this. Can you tell?
No.
That's okay. We're going to get through it.
Gotta go for it. Just roll with it.
Okay.
Just roll.
Okay, so last week we talked about God in the valley, but this time God on the mountaintop, and I think that's where we all like to be, right? On the mountaintop?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we learn about God on the mountain, but we get to know Him when we're really in the valley. And most of our lives are spent in the valley. I mean, if you think about it, life's full of highs and lows and ups and downs. And most of your life is going to be somewhere in the valley. But when those mountaintop experiences come, we should be excited about it. But there's some things I point out this week that really should get our attention when we're in those mountaintop experiences.
Okay. So you talked about Jesus led like his inner circle up to the mountaintop. And so why is that important to remember that they didn't lead themselves up there? Why is it important to remember Jesus?
When I was reading through that, what really stuck out to me was, if we're always in a valley, if He leads you up, that means you had to be down. And when you're in a valley, you're down. In the plains, you're down.
All recognize that experience, right?
So it's good to know that He's the one that's going to bring you out of the valley up. He's the one. Now, obviously, we wish it was like yesterday, right? We wish we could control the time that He leads us up. But I think there's something God wants to teach us in the valley. And honestly, the faster, in my personal opinion, the faster we learn what that is, the faster we can move on through that valley. Sometimes when a valley comes in our life, the first thing we'll do is ask somebody to pray it out of our life. Pray till it goes away.
Amen.
Get rid of it. Get over it. Go under it. Go around it. But you got to go through it. And I don't know the length of the time why God allows valleys to linger. But for me, when I realized the faster I try to get to not why are you doing this, but what you want me to learn from this, it seems like the faster my perspective changed to start somewhat come out of the valley.
So you think we kind of have a little bit of say in the time that we go through that, maybe in some circumstances?
It could be, because a lot of times we think we're waiting on God, but God's waiting on us. Waiting for you to change your perspective, waiting for you to be obedient, waiting for you to do whatever He's asked you to do yet. So sometimes we're like, God, where are you? I'm waiting on you. He's like, I'm waiting on you.
And we're waiting on everyone else to change, whereas God's waiting on us to change, maybe? I know
Maybe.
For me, that's kind of hard to change myself, but...
And that specific passage, it's very easy to miss that, but He's the one that led them up. He took them to the top of the mountain.
So why do you think Jesus wanted people to, like those three, to see His transfiguration? Like, what was the point of that?
Well, obviously, Peter, James, and John was His inner circle. That was His people He rolled with. I mean, He had 12 disciples. He had hundreds of disciples, but 12 kind of close, and then 3 was kind of His inner circle that He actually used to build the church, Peter, James, and John, in a great way. But the Old Testament law required that if you are going to testify to something to be truthful, that you needed 2 to 3 witnesses. So the Bible says there, He said He took them. He didn't have to take them, but He took them, and He was keeping the law. So, and we know they did talk about it. We know that Peter talks about it, that he beheld His majesty and saw it. John talked about it, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So they did talk about it. So it was more of a keeping with the law that 2 or 3 people were actually going to testify to truth. It's not just one person's opinion. 2 or 3 people saw what actually took place, which I would have been pretty cool to see if you're in person.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done.
Well, that brings me to another point. Like, they heard the voice of God and they were terrified. Like, don't you feel like you would also be in that? Like, in the Bible, all over the place, it's you see God or you hear God and you're terrified. I mean, why does that bring such fear to people?
So in that context there, that basically you have Peter, James, and John, and Peter goes on this crazy building campaign rant. Let's go and build a tabernacle for Moses and Elijah. By the way, Moses and Elijah, how they even know it was them? Like, they must have been talking about their names. They had name tags. I know they didn't see no photo ID,
Sure.
So they're talking about, and then He said, let's stay here. God obviously said, no, I got other plans. You got to go back down with it, off the mountain. And so at that moment, God got their attention by surrounding them with the cloud, which I talked a little bit about that. I think that's the cloud that led them by day, in my personal opinion. That cloud that came in Solomon's temple and all that stuff. But the cloud was the presence of God. And then He spoke to them. And they actually heard an audible voice. Now, personally, I've never heard the audible voice of God. I've never heard it audibly. Now, there's been times where God's clearly, I just had an impression. I know my name is God. So why are people so terrified? I think really it's the context. And I think is what He tells you. If God tells you, hey, it's going to be okay, I'm going to do that for you, you're probably not going to be terrified.
Right.
If God said, hey, here's what's going to happen, Peter, you're going to deny me and you're going to deny me 3 times, but it's okay. I prayed for you. You're going to be okay. Like, what do you mean? And now I'm frustrated or anxious about this is what's going to happen. Hey, I know you think this, but here's what's going to happen in your life. So I think it really depends on what God's trying to say to you. I don't know necessarily, if I look back at my own personal life, that as God has spoken, that has terrified me, scared me. It has been, and since like God says, go start a church.
Right.
It's
a little bit scary.
That was very scary. Leave, have no money, no job, no place to live, no building, no people, no congregation, and just go. That is like, it's kind of awkward how I said it. God said it, I know so clearly, so there was the peace. But then there was the backside. I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this, and scared to death.
Like the day-to-day, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think when God speaks to you a lot of times, it's what I look for is peace. I could be scared, like, oh gosh, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I have a peace about it. Because I don't think peace is just a feeling, it's a person, it's his presence. So when people come to me and say, I'm trying to make this big decision, I don't know if I'm scared, I don't know if I should do this or not, should I do this or that? And I said, which one do you have peace about? Which one do you feel like peace leads you to? And sometimes it's not even what their preference is. I want that, but I think more peaceful, I feel like this, then maybe you should follow what that peace feeling is.
Right. Okay.
So I think it could be both there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Just
for
be
me personally.
obedient and in that peace.
Yeah. Be obedient. Even though when you don't know, be obedient. So, and that doesn't mean you're not going to be scared or anxious about something. It's just, I think the peace begins to change your perspective, and that perspective begins to change how you feel. Because it's really your feelings follow your thoughts. So the quicker I can get my thoughts onto him, which in a valley, it's not, it's always on the valley. On the mountaintop, it's not on him. It's always on, hey, things good.
Right.
Job's good. Finance is good. Kids are good. Life is good. So I really don't, I'm just kind of self-sufficient here. So I don't need, and that was the whole point of this message was, no, even on the mountaintop, get your eyes on Jesus. Only he is the one that should be focused on, even on the mountaintop experience. That's usually when we drop our guard because, hey, life's good. Don't need that right now.
Sure.
Things are pretty smooth. But I think 2020 has caught everybody off guard, and hopefully we'll be grateful for even the small things of going out to eat with friends, to go and visiting your family, to telling your people you love them. Don't take them for granted.
Sure, absolutely. I think that has taught us this year.
But I'm looking for a mountaintop experience.
I think we all are. Aren't we always looking for the mountaintop
Lord,
experience?
is now the time to lead on up, right? Take us to the mountain. Let's go back. And we know right on the hills of that will be a valley again, but that's life.
Yes. Unfortunately and fortunately.
Right.
Like you said, God talks to us, like reaches out. We get to know him more in the valley, even though it sucks sometimes.
So, yeah.
Okay, guys, this is the rundown with
my
Pastor
gosh.
Daniel.
7 minutes and 46 seconds.
Oh my goodness, who
Great
knew
timing.
he could be that short, right? So good. Looking forward to
Connie
this.
did awesome. First time. So, way to go for comments. Hands up, praise, claps in the comments. Way to go, Connie.
Okay, guys, we will see you again right here next week.